hear that applied to a series of rap songs that just kind of sound like Eminem derivative cuts. Buying a shitty Bandcamp EP from a guy you meet at a local show once and follow it on social media should count as a tax write-off. In that it is a charitable donation, yes, I think it should actually count as a tax write-off. I do agree with you there. That's some good agreement that I think we could have going. I mean, just like you would donate money to, I don't know what, a children's cancer fund, or like the Red Cross.
I'm way better at trash talk
UNICEF. You can also donate money to random frickin' dudes that have Bandcamp EPs. I think it's as worthy a cause as anything else. Trap music is the musical equivalent of Dadaism. I don't know if you can truly, genuinely argue this point, understanding art history, and I'm not claiming that I do, but I will say there are some key tenets to Dadaism, Surrealism, postmodernism, post-meaningism, satire that have and can be embraced by trap music. Absurd songs and artists and singles.
I think Aftershock
like
should
Ugly
trigger
God's
on its
Water.
own, but
So while
non-matrix.
no, I would not argue that the genre as a whole is basically a one-to-one equivalent to Dadaism, there are artists and there are albums and songs within the genre that I see having some creative parallels. The Big Day may be very flawed and overlong, but the hate it's been getting in music circles is frankly way overboard. I get if the ill will Chance has developed after Coloring Book affected how people see his album, but it's not even close to Logic or Little Dicky bad. You know, it's funny because this tweet actually got posted before I put my review out. But anyway, look, I don't care for the record, and obviously I have given Logic and Little Dicky very harsh scores as well, but I still see the Big Day as worse than their most recent releases. I'm not sure if I totally get into the premise of your tweet either, because what exactly did Chance do after Coloring Book that would have brought him all of this animosity that would have driven people to hate his record? I mean, the one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was that story that came out from Spin about his PR team trying to get somewhat negative articles about him taken down. But I don't know if that was so widespread that, like, all of his fans and the hip-hop industry and just the music industry at large were just like, this next record, no. Honestly, I think it's been more of a case of people love Chance the Rapper, and the disappointment that he brought to the table with that album was immense. That is not the album anybody wanted to hear, and I just don't really have anything else to say about it other than that. It goes, Siri picks best albums, cringing with, let's argue, let's agree, track review, random music-related story video, whatever other shit he posts, actual review.
I
Well, I know that you sort of included whatever other shit he posts.
She got
You
both
forgot
our
about
flashes.
my best and most popular and most in-demand segment, It's Food, which I will make another one of at some point in my life. If Danny McBride played Kanye West in a movie, Michael Cera should play Drake? Honestly, I think Chris Evans should play Drake. Either him or Ryan Gosling. Those are my thoughts. Michael Cera would be more like Kendrick. Kendrick I see as more like a Michael Cera type. 3D printer companies could make a lot of money by introducing a cheap 3D printer that prints vinyl. Downloading vinyl records is the next big thing in the music industry. I've seen videos where records have been 3D printed, like actual vinyl albums, and they've been played and they kind of sound like trash, but if there's a way that you could do it where they come out sounding amazing, could be cool. Could really be cool. I don't know how true to the dynamic sound of an analog recording, a 3D printed record could really be, but I don't know. I would love that technology. That technology would be cool. OK Computer is overrated. People should appreciate In Rainbows and the Bends more. I understand OK Computer is not like the greatest album of all time, and Radiohead on the whole are a tad bit overrated, yes. But every critique you could throw at OK Computer as it not being the band's best album and it not being that great of a rock album generally, in my view, applies double for the Bends. I do think people should appreciate In Rainbows more. On that front, I do agree. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. That has been this latest episode of Let's Argue. I do quickly want to shout out and mention our primo patrons that are doing amazing things over at our Patreon page, which is linked down below. Shout out to them. Thank you for supporting the segment, the channel, the show, everything. Oh my God. Oh my God, look at them. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. I love them. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Over here next to my head is also another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. Let's argue forever.
Living with schizophrenia, people wonder if I'm able to have a social life. They think I can't hang out with my friends. But I can. I DJ with my friends often.
No, why did he
I feel good
glance in
about
there?
treatment goals.
Talk to your doctor about schizophrenia treatment options.
He like lanterned the Ramus, I think. It worked out though. I got another harvest deck. People say don't take harvest. They say take something good.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the best teeth in the game, and it's time for a Let's Argue, where I go over the hottest takes, the most unpopular opinions, and the toughest questions that you guys send me over social media. I respond to the best ones literally in these segments. That's what we do. Let's go. Peppa Pig is the only current pop artist to really nail their sound with a debut release. While other artists struggle to solidify their sound on their first record, Peppa seems to know exactly what she wants to do. Yes, okay, I agree to an extent. However, that music off of that Peppa Pig record, I mean, if you've been following Peppa's career up until this point, you've already heard all that stuff. None of that shit was a surprise on the record. That was just a bunch of loose ends from Peppa's previous musical exploits that landed on her first album, which to me is kind of lazy. You know, there are a lot of debut albums that maybe, sure, they're not as good, but hey, there's a bit of a new concept behind them. There is a theme tying it all together, and you know what? That artist that put that record out didn't just spill the whole thing out one by one by one by one. They put an entire record out, they packaged it up, they did not know how the audience was going to receive it beforehand, and it was a new experience for everybody listening to it all at once. Meanwhile, every track off that trash-ass Peppa record, and it is garbage, don't kid yourselves, every trash song off that trash record, people already knew and had a previous context associated with it. So, pretty lazy on Peppa's part. Disgusting that you would post this tweet. Disgusting. People that say you should like this artist because they influenced your favorite artist are absolutely stupid. Yeah, I guess I would agree that that is faulty logic. However, I personally, as a hardcore music fan, a music nerd, as some people would say, I do sometimes find it kind of weird and kind of disappointing when I really love an artist's work, but I haven't really been able to get into their stuff because I either don't enjoy it or I just haven't made the time to dive into their discography. That's always, you know, a sad thing for me. It's always a sad thing because I do feel like when I enjoy the records and the artists that have influenced some of my favorite albums, it does give me a deeper understanding of that record, and I think it sort of makes my personal enjoyment of the record grow even more. Again, this is not necessarily true that you have to enjoy every artist and every album that influences some other artist or album that you like. Of course you don't, but for me personally, it's always a sad moment when I can't make that extra connection. Greta Van Fleet is Jake from yesterday, but nobody forgot about Led Zeppelin. Yeah, that's exactly the life that they're living. That's exactly the... You're the only YouTuber I watch who I share close to zero opinions with. Well, that's fine. I see
getting
that
hit by the
as
drag.
one of the functions of my content, that you can come on and get a different perspective that you don't necessarily agree with, and maybe get something out of that. You know, either entertainment value, or maybe it reinforces or makes you think more about what you enjoy. Now, that's not the only way you can enjoy or get something out of my content, but that's an example. Avenged Sevenfold gets too much shit from critics. They make great, unique compositions, but get grouped together with trash like Five Finger Death Punch by people who don't know shit about metal. I don't think Avenged Sevenfold is the worst contemporary metal band that you could be listening to, but I don't think they're very good. I think there are way better metal bands out there that you could be listening to, especially in the underground. And while I wouldn't compare them directly to Five Finger Death Punch, I think they write two very different kinds of metal. I wouldn't be surprised if both bands have quite a bit of crossover audience, frankly. I mean, if you put both of those bands on a big bill at a huge open-air metal show, like, people are going to show up, kick ass, have fun, mosh, and enjoy themselves to both bands. You aren't going to see the Five Finger Death Punch or the Avenged Sevenfold fans, like, filing out, like, fuck this band, I hate this other band, I'm not listening to this band. Mashed is the superior way of consuming potatoes. I agree, not as greasy as many of the other potato dishes that you could consume, and it's quite efficient because the potatoes are already mashed, don't gotta chew them too much. Rock stations are partly to blame for the decline in popularity of rock music because their tendency to only play classic rock hits. While they're catering to old people, young people who tune to a rock station might get deterred because they don't want to listen to dad rock.
Why did he take all this?
Listening to rock stations. Look, my guy, I don't know if you've seen these statistics, but the public generally every year is matriculating more and more over to streaming as their primary mode of listening to and enjoying music casually. And the younger you cut those ages, the larger percentages you're going to see. I mean, at this point, are even half of young people getting most of the music they listen to through the radio? I don't think so. And look, that has nothing to do with rock radio stations. It's not like young people collectively were just like, man, all this dad rock, I'm just gonna listen to music on my phone now. No, they transferred over to the phone because it's more efficient than being tethered to a radio, which is typically, for most people, just in one spot, the car. Why would you listen to some automated mix of songs with commercials on the radio when you could literally just like stream music with little to no advertisements for free over here, and you're picking what songs you want at your pace in a personal playlist, or even a curated playlist, which you already know is going to have a wider array of artists represented than just like some 20 minutes of radio programming. The decline in rock story is another issue we can get into at another time, but what I'm telling you is that the reason this genre is not as relevant as it used to be, it has little to nothing to do with radio. I feel as though the rap game doesn't respect rappers like Cakes the Killa despite the rise in LGBT rappers. Yeah, I mean, I guess there has been a rise, and that's really a cool thing, but I don't think Cakes has been as consistent with putting out new stuff, putting out big singles, putting out music videos. I don't exactly know why. Sadly, I don't think the industry had taken to Cakes in the way that it really should have. Given Cakes' talent and vision and ability, I feel like that is an opportunity that a ton of different labels should have jumped on at the time, but yet they didn't. So I don't know, hopefully at some point Cakes can make a bit of a comeback, and I would say that even at this point, even with a Lil Nas X, for example, I don't think there is yet enough acceptance of the LGBTQ community in hip-hop right now as there needs to be. I still think there's quite a bit of stigma amongst a lot of the hip-hop listening audience when it comes to people who are trans, people who are bi, people who are gay, etc. Not all electro swing is as bad as you think, yes, but a vast majority of it, a vast majority of it is really as bad as you think. I won't deny the likelihood that there are some electro swing songs out there that I will or I do enjoy, but if you read a Yelp review for a restaurant that said 90% of the time this restaurant will food poison you, are you gonna go in there and like just eat casually because you know 1/10 of the time it's gonna be good or not almost
Oh my
kill
gosh,
you?
that didn't connect.
No,
Are you serious?
of course not. Moths are cooler than
Alright.
butterflies.
Please land and save me. there.
Moths are just goth butterflies, dude. You have dark, creepy moths, you have white moths, and those are like the pastel goths. T-Lop 4 is great, and you should be ashamed of yourself. It's not that good. If it were good, what is good about it would be so obvious and so on the surface. Like, the beats aren't even that great for a Pierre record. Vocally, he's not really there. Come on. Do we need to keep kidding ourselves? The Chainsmokers killed off mainstream EDM entirely. I don't think mainstream EDM is gone entirely, and I don't think it's going anywhere because people want to keep dancing and doing drugs, and as long as they want to
Oh
keep
my gosh,
dancing
that
and
killed?
doing
Are you
drugs, people are
serious?
going to make dance music for them to dance and do drugs to.
thought
And
it
the
was a melee,
cheapest
dude.
and most efficient way of making dance music
He
is
was a melee,
electronically.
dude.
And
I
because of
was an
that, like a
80, dude.
majority of the dance music we're going to continue hearing is going to
Hit
be
me for a
electronic
lot
dance
of
music.
damage.
People are still listening to it and enjoying it. The producers in the genre are still in demand. I mean, look at the new Katy Perry single. It's fantastic. It's got EDM vibes. It has an EDM producer on the beat. The new songs on The Lion King are not good, and some of the changes done to the old ones are really out of place, not to mention that the mixing of the audio is really bad. I'm not surprised by this. There
If
are
I yelled,
Disney
we would've won that
projects and
fight.
Disney
Kinda
films
mad
and
at myself.
soundtracks that as of late have been a little hit or miss. Some
guess
of
that
the
never
recent
missed
Disney
song.
soundtracks are absolute fire in my opinion, like the Moana soundtrack. I think the songwriting, the singing, the arranged instrumentation, the group vocals on that soundtrack are pretty fire. I think the little David Bowie-ish song on there is fun and one of my favorite Disney songs in a while. But then you have projects like
Why did I eat it? I'm actually
Frozen,
done.
which the music on that soundtrack is absolute garbage, absolute trash. The strings sound like piss. And I don't know, the whole Lion King thing from top to bottom just seems like, you know, a cash grab. Like, let's just literally redo this thing because we redid the Jungle Book. But here's the thing, the Jungle Book as a cartoon, it's a great cartoon, but it's not as artful and masterful as the Lion King. Like, it's still kind of weird and rough around the edges, and it hasn't aged that well, so you could see yourself remaking it in the way that they did with all of the, you know, live looking CGI and, you know, the live action sets and so on and so forth. Like, it makes sense to remake that movie in that fashion. But The Lion King,
I think he might
however,
have stayed
has aged incredibly well. That movie still looks as good now as it did the day it was released.
I'm
Like,
gonna go, man.
why would you need to remake that movie other than to just like squeeze more money out of the franchise? I mean, it is cool that they included the actors and the voices that they did in the lineup. I mean, that's a cool thing. But outside of that, I really personally have no excitement whatsoever for this new Lion King. I really don't. And the Beyonce record with music inspired by the Lion King seems just boring as well. I just don't get it. People that don't use headphones in public places
Okay, it's
are
weird
the
to pick up
worst.
the,
I mean, I can understand a boombox. Boomboxes are cool, especially if you're playing like something really cool off of it, something that sounds fun. But I mean, if you're just playing your phone really loudly, if you're just playing loud music off your phone, it just sounds like shit. No one wants to hear your music sound like shit from your phone. Stop. What is your unpopular opinion? I don't know. This might be kind of an unpopular opinion.
see
I
anything.
just don't
This
feel
is
like Built
hype.
to Spill is that
But
good.
this
I just don't get it.
Carry.
It's just such boilerplate meat and potatoes indie. I just don't get it. Is that unpopular? I don't know. I mean, I literally have dozens of unpopular opinions that people tear me up over like every week in my thousands of reviews on my channel. Having unpopular opinions is literally my lifestyle.
Oof.
The
You
desk
coulda
from
queued a
Tiny
little
Desk
bit earlier.
Concert is not even that tiny. In fact, it's pretty big, or at least medium sized. My friend, you're looking at this all wrong. You're looking at it as a tiny desk concert. A concert at a tiny desk. When you really should be looking at it like a tiny desk concert. A tiny concert at a desk. It's not that the desk is tiny, it's that the concert is tiny and it's at a desk. Now please leave a comment if I fucking blew your mind with that shit, because it's literally what it is. And I think I'm gonna have to leave it at that, everyone. That is the latest edition of Let's Argue here. Thank you very much for watching. You are the best. Over here next to my head is another Let's Argue that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Let's Argue forever. A bit of a vocal intro for the latest episode of Let's Argue. Thank you everyone for watching. If you didn't already know, Let's Argue is a YouTube series where I go online. I expect you to hand me your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, your tough questions,
I'm gonna build a row
and I
last.
respond to the best ones literally in this vidya. So let's go! Some rap songs was trash. Terrible attempt at being experimental, bad rapping, too short, bad samples / production. How do I deal with this? So some rap songs, terrible attempt at being experimental, and yet there aren't a whole lot of rap projects out there that sound like it. So I don't know, I think based on the merits of it sounding pretty
Oh,
unique
come on,
alone,
it canceled my
I
ult.
think that would kind of justify
She's definitely gonna run a straight line
its,
too.
Experimental, qualities. Not that something being unique automatically means it's good, but most experiments in music are embarked upon
myself
to
illusions.
break new ground, discover something new. And considering how distinctly surreal and depressive some rap songs is, I think
expect the hybrid.
you could legitimately call that record experimental. Yeah, it's a little short. It's kind of short, but so is Kids See Ghosts. I don't think something being short inherently means it's bad. I guess, is it short at the sacrifice of song development, of entertainment value, of emotional potency? And honestly, I think for that project being as short as it is, it hits pretty hard. Not in an aggressive way, it's more like a BAM! You're sad now! The production as well is pretty dope on that record. I wouldn't say it's rickety or thrown together or anything like that. Sure, it's a little lo-fi, it's kind of messy, but that's certainly intentional, and the execution of that messiness is certainly skilled. And finally, with the bad rapping, Earl has been spitting rhymes in this very weary, forlorn, depressive, somewhat monotone style for a while now, at least to a degree on most of his projects. I mean, maybe you're not happy to hear it take over his style and his delivery entirely
Might need
on this
execution
new
race
record.
here.
And not to insinuate Earl emotionally is getting worse and that he's just a really sad, depressive guy all the time. I just think he wanted to focus on those emotions and maybe get some catharsis out of that process.
Wow, that works
Maybe
with-
it led to some
Silas
kind
is
of
actually
low-key
broken.
rapping on this album, sure, but I wouldn't say it's bad.
Now, when are we gonna get
merely
someone
by
that can
virtue
steal
of the
Zillion's
fact that
passive?
he effectively communicated those emotions pretty well. The old man from Up is a coward for tying balloons to his house, and flying away from his problems. Running never solves anything. Also, he endangered a little boy. I guess there's a grain of truth to what you're saying here, but the dude from Up wasn't really running away from his problems as much as he was, I guess, trying to fulfill the promises that he had made with his significant other in their relationship, that they're going to go on adventures and do all this cool stuff and so on and so forth, and life just, I guess, kind of caught up with them and prevented all of that from happening. And now he was, and I'm not saying this is healthy or anything, trying to fill that void or make up for that, because
Make up
it
for
was
that.
just like a missed opportunity. I don't think he was running away from his problems
Disintegrated.
as much as he was dealing with a necessary step in the mourning process in a way that could only be explored in a cartoon. What you think he was running away from, I don't know, and it's not like he consciously force this kid to come with him on his flying house. That was not a part of the plan. And once your house is up in the air flying, I don't think he had much of a a plan B to get it down and sort of turn the house back around and put the kid back. So I don't vibe with this tweet. I disagree. Although I do appreciate that this has made me reflect on how much I enjoy the movie Up. Your inability to review the 855 new Little B the Bass God tracks means you are no longer worthy of the title World's Busiest Music Nerd. Wow, that is untrue for a couple of different reasons. One, I would advocate that I am still the busiest music nerd because I'm too goddamn busy to review that goddamn mixtape. And secondly, you can't really say I'm not the internet's busiest music nerd based on the criteria of not having reviewed that mixtape, because if I'm not the internet's busiest music nerd, who is? Who is replacing me in that position? Is it someone who's reviewed the 855 song mixtape? No, because to my knowledge, nobody has done a thoughtful, substantive, and adequate review of that mixtape. Maybe you could argue that whoever does do that, and this is a bit of a challenge here, is actually the internet's busiest music nerd, but then after reviewing that mixtape, they would have to start reviewing other things to stay busy. Busyness and being busy is not just something you attain once and you have it, it's a state of being. I do look forward to some of the viewers of this video attempting their own review of this Little B mixtape, where not only they go over most of the songs throughout this project, but also explain the artistic significance of this project within the greater Little B discography. Brazilian music is often overlooked and mainly referred as being only bossa nova and samba, but in reality its influence goes from Mutantes influencing Nirvana and the Tropicalia influencing Talking Heads, to Brazilian funk influencing the likes of Beyonce and Diplo. This is absolutely true. But I think that just kind of goes to show exactly how shallow the American mainstream's understanding and coverage of music outside American borders and really just outside of the borders of English-speaking countries is. Because yeah, while the understanding of Brazilian music, it's kind of shallow to the average American, to the average person in the American music industry, I would argue it's even shallower when you're talking about music coming out of, I don't know, let's say Turkey or Iran or Russia. I think the only Russian music act making noise over here in the US at the moment is Little Big, and before that, Tattoo? So, I don't know, at least some Americans can name genres that the Brazilian music scene has specialized in over the years. Can't say that's so much the case for a great deal of other countries out there. Thankfully, a lot of this is slowly changing thanks to the internet and the access it gives to music listeners curious about such things. I guess we can only really wait for people's curiosity to get the best of them and kind of change the landscape of music, I suppose.